It's generally accepted that we live in a patriarchal society. How we got there is up for debate. Some suggest it's religious, and God made woman to be subservient to man. Others, biological, men are stronger and therefore superior. Others, practical, men were hunters while women just gathered. However, in the 1850s brought with it a new challenge to the patriarchal model through the women's suffrage movement. By the 1920s, women had won the right to vote, marking the first wave of feminism. The 1960s brought with it the second wave of feminism, fighting for equality and centering on discussions of female sexuality, gender, employment inequalities, domestic responsibilities, and stereotyped expectations. The very notion of the perfect housewife was questioned, and with it came an anthem of female empowerment and feminist-driven ideologies meant to undermine the patriarchy. This challenge of political and social gender norms also crept into the religious with a surge of interest in the goddess traditions. The reintroduction of the goddess into Western consciousness, coupled with the feminist revolution, had an empowering effect on women. Both worked to restore dignity, power, purpose, and passion to women, and celebrated all that is feminine, the mysteries of womanhood. In the 70s and 80s, feminism exposed the patriarchal structure and forced society to begin to take a long, hard look at gender identity for both women and men. And while many women were empowered through feminism, men began to flounder as they wrestled with who they were now supposed to be in light of these newly reforming gender roles. While some men embraced the change, many others did not know how to adapt and were hesitant with the shift. These new perspectives in gender identity mark the beginning of a painful divorce from a lengthy cultural tradition of masculinity. Many were not comfortable embracing the feminine, especially in relation to their own identities, and therefore didn't know how to react or adapt or even know who they should become. Dr. Matthew Fox said, "It's easy to see why men might fear being feminized by the divine feminine, since there has been no spiritual masculine counterpart to offer in return." So, what do men do? Who are they supposed to be? The 1990s brought with it the mythopoetic men's movement. Authors like Robert Bly and James Hillman, Robert Moore, and Michael Mead all used a Jungian and archetypal approach to masculinity, focusing on the psychological and emotional identity of men by using myth, folktales, poetry, storytelling, rituals, and workshops. It was a stark contrast to other men's movements of the time, like the men's liberation movement, the pro-feminist movement, the men's rights movement, and the Christian men's movement, known as Promise Keepers. With books like Iron John, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and Knights Without Armor, the movement was meant to come alongside feminism. However, critics struggled with it for a variety of reasons, including its shying away from patriarchy, having an essentialist lens, having an appropriation of ancient and cultural myths to fit a Western narrative, its seeming exclusion of any man who wasn't white, middle class, or heterosexual, and its propensity to turn archetype into stereotype. Culturally and academically, the mythopoetic men's movement has lost much of its traction over the years. However, out of this movement's foundational work, we can still glean from the core archetypal patterns that offer a more complete, flexible, inclusive, and holistic approach to masculinity. Dr. Matthew Fox, a theologian, professor, former priest, and proponent of depth psychology, reminded us of the archetype's power with his 2008 book, The Hidden Spirituality of Men. According to Dr. Fox, the mythopoetic men's movement missed the mark in that it was too focused on defining the macho side of masculinity, spending more time talking about General Patton than about Gandhi or Jesus or Dr. Martin Luther King. So Fox approached masculinity through archetypes, such as Green Man, Blue Man, Sky Father, and Phallic Man, images that embraced the healthy masculine, what he called the sacred masculine. Furthermore, he explored these archetypes within relationship to the divine feminine as well, something the mythopoets neglected to do. In his book, Fox asked the question, what good is it if the goddess returns and men refuse her presence? What if men offer her no home? He recognized that masculinity needs to be open for the feminine and saw the sacred masculine as the archetype to open the space. The sacred masculine is not about defining masculinity, but but instead offers a more holistic approach to masculinity that honors and encompasses all of the prior men's movements and comes alongside the goddess. The sacred masculine is akin to a dancer's supple strength, as opposed to the inflexible and hulking mass of a bodybuilder. For millennia, society has been instrumental in defining for us what real men do, who real men are, what real men look like. Yet these definitions rarely serve or benefit men, or communities, or the planet, or the sacred. Instead, they often serve corporations and politics, anyone looking to profit from men. Yet these traditional definitions all attack a man where it counts, in his core identity. However, Fox suggested the sacred masculine offers a way for men to be authentically masculine rather than having to fit a mold as dictated by culture. To help us envision this, Fox listed 33 different qualities that encapsulated the embodiment of the sacred masculine. He uses the phrase real men as a way to identify authenticity and give men a way to separate real masculinity from the hegemonic, toxic, and patriarchal examples that culture has traditionally used to define what a man is supposed to be. 12 years ago, Fox suggested the sacred man is poised and ready to return. I believe the time has come, and it is returning. Therefore, my research question is, where is the sacred masculine archetype manifesting in American culture? Using a theoretical lens of depth psychology and cultural hermeneutics, I've explored 4 current cultural artifacts and identified areas where the sacred masculine is manifesting in each. The purpose here is to offer men the opportunity to identify with positive masculine images that are relevant in today's shifting and emergent culture, and give them a more stable foundation on which to build their own masculine selves. Archetypal images, such as the sacred masculine, form in the conscious mind of a culture and are characterized by a particular emotional intensity. According to Samuels, the archetypal is found in the eye of the beholder and not that which it beholds, meaning you can reckon an archetype not by when you see it, but by when you feel it. Hockley states that when you encounter something that is archetypal in quality, it's signified by a spontaneous and unlooked for emotional response. So affect plays a key role in defining the archetype's presence. Then, to select artifacts for review, I relied heavily on heuristics, a way of self-inquiry aimed at finding underlying meanings. Moustakis, the developer of heuristic research, said, intuition guides the researcher in discovery of patterns and meanings. And as archetypes are universal patterns, intuition plays a role in identifying them as well. Furthermore, a key component of heuristics is tacit knowledge, an inner knowing that is difficult to put into words, such as explaining how to ride a bike. As Polanyi said, we can know more than we can tell. So to identify my 4 artifacts, I implemented tacit knowledge grounded in heuristic inquiry, which allowed me to identify my emotionally numinous responses to expressions of the sacred masculine in culturally relevant artifacts. Once identified, I applied hermeneutics to each artifact. Hermeneutics is the art of interpretive knowing and of integrating particular things into a meaningful whole. The hermeneutic circle is a continuous loop of self-reflection and relationship between part and whole back to part again. As such, the sacred masculine's presence can best be interpreted when viewed in relationship to the context in which it appears. Cultural hermeneutics deals specifically with how culture conditions people's understandings and interpretations. This is especially significant here as the Western culture has identified our perceptions, has influenced our perceptions of what constitutes masculinity. Therefore, through the cultural hermeneutic lens, we can identify in parts how these 4 artifacts as a whole are influencing our culture's interpretation of masculinity today. Now, I'd like to investigate each artifact and identify where the sacred masculine is present. I'd like to begin with Marvel's blockbuster hit, Black Panther. The cultural significance of this film is without question or parallel. As the first mega-budget blockbuster movie to have an African-American director and a predominantly Black cast, Black Panther set records at the box office and in the hearts of fans. With the recent passing of its star, Chadwick Boseman, we see just how powerful a role model this character was. The film instantly became a unifying force of Black cultural mythology, offering viewers an opportunity to see, quote, no hurtful stereotypes of Blacks, no ghettos or slaves or thugs, just beautiful royal kings and queens of Wakanda. While not a film specifically about politics, Black Panther is deeply political. And while not a movie specifically about being Black, it is fully Afrocentric. It's a film about polarities and juxtapositions, about holding the tension between pride and arrogance, about resolving the past with the future. It's a film about family and community, about the balance between reconciliation and revenge, and about living in co-union with the land. It's a film about true leadership and not lordship, and a film about making difficult choices to change. While this movie is action-packed and highly entertaining, it was also filled with unexpected moments that brought up unanticipated emotional responses within me, a sign of an archetypal encounter. These moments tended to center around themes of father and son, of loss and abandonment, and of longing for home. These scenes stirred my heart, calling up the remembrances of what could have been, of my own relationships with my father and with my son, and the need to feel like I belong somewhere. In looking for the sacred masculine in these emotional reactions, I identified several of Fox's archetypal qualities to be present in the film. As a reminder, Fox uses the phrase real men as a way to identify authentic masculinity as expressed in the sacred masculine. Two examples are as follows. First, real men defend what they cherish, including space, children, grandchildren, earth, and all her marvelous creatures. We see this in T'Challa as he fights to defend his family, his friends, his homeland, and the globe, while still trying to honor his traditions. Second, real men respect women. They respect the women in their lives and the women's movement's fight for justice and gender equality for all women. This quality is represented by all the women featured in the film, who are strong, powerful, independent, and highly respected by the entire Wakandan community. They are featured in the film as much as T'Challa and represent an influential force. Black Panther also shows us what the sacred masculine is not through the anti-hero character, Killmonger. For some in the Black community, Killmonger is held up as a champion. Some applaud his aggression as justifiable, especially given the suffering many African Americans have endured. But archetypally, Killmonger represents the tyrant king, one who makes war on his own people, is violent, cruel, cold-hearted, vengeful, and dedicated only to himself. And while some see this as a hero, he does not represent the sacred masculine. While the film may be controversial in terms of its overall message, especially for some African Americans, it does give us a framework from which we can model a shift in consciousness around masculinity. T'Challa is not a man without flaws, or a king without mistakes, or a superhero beyond reproach, but he is a quality representation of an embodied sacred masculine. Next is Crew Better Work, the 10th episode of the 9th season of the Emmy Award-winning reality TV series, RuPaul's Drag Race. The art of drag has its roots in the theater, which has long been the center of disruption, social commentary, and political rebellion. Drag embodies subversion through transformation and forces us to reevaluate our views of both gender and sexual identity. It's also a constant reminder not to take ourselves too seriously. It's impossible to deny the impact that RuPaul Charles has had on bringing drag into mainstream culture. What once was used primarily for campy comic relief is now a celebrated craft. In 2010, RuPaul wrote, "Drag queens carry the burden of shame inflicted on feminine men by a masculine-dominated society. Feminine behavior in a man is seen as an act of treason in a masculine culture." A decade later, it appears our culture is attempting to heal that burden of shame, and RuPaul's Drag Race has been part of that healing. The show debuted in 2009, airing on Logo TV, where it had moderate viewership among the LGBT community, until the 9th season in 2017, when it transitioned to VH1 and drew a whopping 1 million viewers for the premiere episode. For those unfamiliar with the series, drag queens compete in weekly challenges that push their drag acumen to the limits. Each week, the least impressive performer is sent home and the remaining queens survive to drag another day. A staple of the competition is the Makeover Challenge. where the contestants transform someone into a drag relative. In season 9, the drag queens got to turn straight members of their crew into drag sisters. What makes this makeover episode special is that the drag queens are already familiar with the crew, and therefore some of the conversations the queens have with that crew turn quite personal. It's these moments of communion that provide a numinous quality to the show and provokes emotions to rise up within me. Moments like when Duncan talks about how he's proud his son will see him walk in heels. This comment affects RuPaul, reminding him of how he had wished his father was brave enough to use all the colors in the crayon box. I think about my own son and what I'm teaching him. Or burly, bald-headed ex-Marine Sarge shattering my preconceptions. He brings kindness, humility, and humor to this challenge, breaking ranks with the traditional stereotype of an ex-Marine, and it's incredibly refreshing. And when Rizzo opens up about being labeled a jock, even though he doesn't see himself that way, and would rather remove labels altogether. Or when Nina's tatted and pierced partner, Aaron, gets visibly emotional after Nina is eliminated. He breaks down crying and tells Nina she's part of his family now. Each crew member's story and interaction with their drag mentor provokes a deeply numinous response within me and signals the sacred masculine's presence through such qualities as real men are not homophobic or heterophobic. They acknowledge and respect the diversity of creation, which includes sexual diversity. This is exemplified by all the crew, but especially Rizzo. His heartfelt desire to honor all walks of life is encouraging and unanticipated. Rizzo is even willing to endure a tight tuck for Trinity, which helps him win the challenge. Real men do not shame themselves or other men about their masculinity. Again, all the crew practice this, but Sarge is one you would not expect to connect so personally with a transgendered drag queen. The relationship Sarge creates with Peppermint is extremely endearing, and his onstage persona, Wintergreen, brought the house down. I keep reminding myself that this is reality TV, edited for dramatic effect, for drama, and to create a narrative. But in this instance, perhaps that doesn't matter. The narrative being created and displayed is one that celebrates the sacred masculine. And it seems others feel the same way. The reactions to this episode was extremely overwhelmingly positive for viewers, going so far as to say that this episode could heal families. And that could be true. That is the potential the sacred masculine archetype has. This episode and the embracing of the sacred masculine has touched many people at a very personal level. My next artifact is the Christian worship song, Reckless Love by Corey Asbury. Reckless Love, the eponymous title track from Corey Asbury's sophomore album, took the contemporary Christian music scene by storm, garnering Asbury multiple award nominations and ultimately winning him the 2018 Dove Award for Song of the Year. This song, however, was not without its controversy. More conservative Christian circles labeled the song heretical for its suggestion that God is reckless. Yet the song's official videos on YouTube amassed over 200 million views, suggesting most could care less. They are drawn to the song and its message. Reckless Love even reached Justin Bieber, who posted an Instagram video of himself singing the song to his 90 million plus subscribers. The chorus sings of the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God that chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. The bridge is an anthem to God's persistent pursuit of his children, saying, "There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me." While the theme of God's love is not new in contemporary worship music, something about this song in particular has moved people deeply. The song anthropomorphizes God with lyrical images of a tenacious love of a father for his child, an idealized image of what powerful and active fatherly love looks like. Asbury himself said that he had to become a father to truly understand how to become a son. Synchronistically, the first time I heard this song, I was holding my own son in my arms, his tiny 4-year-old arms wrapped around my neck. For the first time, it occurred to me that the same powerful love I had for my son is the same love the divine had for me. Somehow this was a revelation, and in that moment, something in me broke. I was overwhelmed with numinous emotions and hot tears streamed down my face. In that moment, I felt validated and loved, pursued, and worthy of pursuit. Each line of the song held a numinous visualization for me of what sacred masculinity looks like, both to the people experiencing the archetype and those who are embodying the archetype. Regarding Fox's qualities, here are two identified. First, real men listen to music and are unafraid to follow the inner journeys of joy and grief, celebration and community, surprise and elegance that it inspires. Asbury admits that this song came out of great pain in questioning his beliefs in God. Life situations forced him to reflect on God as Father, and music was his way of expressing that. The process of writing this song allowed Asbury to transmute his emotions, which brings his listeners through their own inner journey as well. Second, real men experience their emotions. They don't run from their feelings. This song confronts many core woundings, such as feelings of abandonment, of invisibility and isolation, both for the songwriter and for those who engage with the song. Reckless Love lyrically draws traditionally masculine qualities out of the logos-minded spiritual realm, beyond a judging Saturnian God consciousness, and reflects an eros consciousness, experienced as masculine affection and compassion, generosity, delight, protection, and wonderment. For many like myself, the song initiates us into the realm of the sacred masculine, prophetically announcing a masculine energy that is powerfully tender and yet can help repair woundings created by lesser masculine energies. It's a salve for those of us whose experiences with the archetypal father have been less than healing. Finally, I review the Netflix series Sense8. This science fiction drama series tells the story of 8 random strangers from around the world who are inexplicably connected mentally and emotionally as their senses are bound together. Suddenly they share thoughts, feelings, time, space, knowledge, skills, and abilities. They must work together to save themselves and other clusters across the globe from an evil biogenetics corporation hunting them down. The series is the brainchild of the Wachowski sisters, the power duo behind the Matrix trilogy. The sisters, who started out their career as brothers, were able to create a truly transhumanistic series incorporating themes of love, acceptance, fighting for justice, and celebrating the unity in our shared humanity. These themes are archetypal, but what makes Sense8 truly groundbreaking is its incorporation of a diverse cast by including Asian, Latino, African American, Indian, transgender, and gay characters as main characters. The series was filmed on location across the globe, and the production cost was just one of the factors in the reason that the series was canceled abruptly after a cliffhanger season ending. In an act of life-imitating art, fans of the show from across the globe came together to overthrow the giant corporation by petitioning Netflix and demanding another season. In an unprecedented move, according to Lana, Netflix conceded to allow for a 2-hour series finale that brought the journey to a happy ending. Like the other artifacts, this series provoked emotions within me at the most unexpected times. When Nomi admits that no one had ever defended her before, I really felt that. Or as we flash back to when Nomi was still Michael, a young boy in junior high being harassed in the locker room by other boys, I could identify. Or as Capheus flashes back to when he and his mother had to give his baby sister up for adoption to save her life, I felt that too. Or the scene where Capheus and Leto are continents apart, yet simultaneously being accosted by interviews about their masculinity. Our sensates unite to deliver one of the most triumphant scenes I've ever witnessed, complete with tears running down my face and chills running up my spine. Each of these scenes carries an archetypal weight to them and reminds us that emotional weight is too heavy to carry alone. Sense8 models how healing it is to share this weight with another, reminding us that collectively, I am also a we. 2 other sacred masculine qualities are: first, real men enjoy sex and taste the delights of ravisher and ravishee. Sex, as it's explored in Sense8, is not shied away from. As the sensates all share senses, the moments of intimacy become collective and are displayed in an unashamed way, no matter who it's between. Next, real men seek to expand their consciousness. They get to know the spiritual man inside, increase their powers of imagination and creativity, and exhibit compassion. Sense8 fully embraces what it means to see the other as an extension of the self, where a conscious connection to another elicits compassion on how we relate to the world, both in the show and through fans' experiences of the show. The expanding consciousness Sense8 inspires suggests that there's something special at work here. In researching the series, I came across several fans commenting that they were straight men and absolutely loved this series and the way it's helped them to feel connected to others and to themselves. While I normally wouldn't see heterosexuality as an important qualifier, here it implies that these men are welcoming the empathy and awareness they feel for others after watching the series. Sense8 encapsulates the exhilaration of unity and beautifully models many aspects of the sacred masculine by celebrating the differences that connects us as humans and invites us to embrace stepping into another's shoes. There are, of course, limitations to the research. First, it's not universally applicable to every subculture in Western civilization, as some may not resonate with these images as I did. I'm also keenly aware that my own biases and complexes form a lens through which I am encountering the sacred masculine. Next, there are many qualities of the sacred masculine that overlap with other archetypes, such as the father or the hero archetype. While I could have mentioned those, I chose to narrow my scope to only identify with the sacred masculine. Finally, I restricted my artifacts to those that were commercially successful, relatively recent, and widely known in order to more accurately reflect the current cultural climate. There are many other artifacts that could and should be explored, but I had to limit my selections. The qualities themselves are an opportunity for further study. From Fox's original list published in 2008, there are qualities I did not identify. I can infer that there are artifacts existing today that reflect these remaining qualities, so further work can be done to identify them. Additionally, some of the language that Fox used 12 years ago now holds different meaning. For example, Fox used the phrase, "real men love their bodies." Today, this phrase may be more closely associated with the body positivity movement, but Fox's initial meaning men would recognize that their bodies are an extension of the spirit and the cosmos. Therefore, this divine quality could be rewritten as, real men are conscious of their body's sacred connection to the universe and the divine, in order to better encapsulate Fox's original meaning in relation to the archetype. Finally, a lot has changed since 2008. Technology alone has revolutionized the world, and Fox's qualities don't incorporate this facet of the human experience. As such, there is opportunity to reevaluate Fox's original archetypal qualities and adjust or amend them in light of these cultural shifts. In conclusion, this process of finding and identifying the sacred masculine has been a transformative work for me. Sociologist Michael Kimmel once said, "If fathers can model new kinds of behavior, they will raise a new generation of sons." This quote has been a constant reminder to me of the importance of identifying and then modeling the sacred masculine. During this work, I had to bury my own father. His death was not sudden. He had been slowly dying for years, but its timing was both unexpected and synchronistic. I did my best to be as intentional with this year-long process of incrementally saying goodbye as I could. Simultaneously, I was trying to father my own son through this process. He was too young to fully comprehend what was happening, but with Kimmel's words in my head, I wanted to make sure I did not dismiss what he was experiencing. It was a liminal space, one in which I now realize was suspended in the sacred masculine. Personally, this work has adjusted the way that I understand masculinity. It's given me greater permission to live authentically and with less fear of who I was created to be. Greater still, it offers me a model through which I can raise my son, allowing me to break a cycle of toxic patterns that were modeled for me, and offer him an alternate perspective on what it means to be a man. Thank you.